Welcome back to the channel, and Happy New Year! We're officially more than halfway through this disaster of a decade, so pat yourself on the back, you made it! The format for this video is going to be simpler than my previous one, partly because I got really sick while working on this video, hence why it ended up being pushed back by a week, and also to help ease me back into making videos after the ordeal I went through last time, because man, editing that video was literal hell, and I never want to make another R tier ranking video ever again because holy crap. Just to give a taste of the miserable experience I had working on that video, after trimming out 2/3 of my original voiceover to get the video down to a reasonable length, the project file was still too unmanageable to the point where Capcut would stutter and freeze constantly when I was adding things like subtitles or close-ups. Exporting the final video took me about 4 times as long as previous videos I made of a similar or greater length, and the final file was glitched so the audio and visuals were out of sync and cut off weirdly, and when I was trying to work on the outro it took me almost 2 hours to export a clip that was only 2 minutes long,
and the glitch was still happening.
Eventually got to a point where the video just refused to export at all from my desktop, and it was more easy and time efficient to just piece together the background music, voiceover, and sound effects from my laptop to patch up the glitched audio. So yeah, I had a bit of a rough start to 2026, but the video's finally done and uploaded, hooray, and I can move on to future projects instead of struggling over projects from last year. I'm feeling hopeful, I'm feeling inspired, I'm doing my Habitica dailies again, nature is healing. So, looking back on what I've been able to accomplish creatively during the 2020s, I feel like it wasn't until 2023 that I started trying to make changes for the better as far as getting into a regular drawing habit, uploading to YouTube and other platforms on which I share my art, and working purposefully on my goals to develop my original characters and the stories to which they belong. 2024 was a bit of a slow start, but once I eventually found my footing, that was when I began settling into predictable routines as far as posting schedules, namely uploading a YouTube video every 2 weeks, and 2025 was a continuation of the pattern that I had established. This past year was an ambitious one for me, to the point where I even made a list of resolutions for that year, which I hadn't done in a very long time. Abby from Lorian's Craft Box shared a bingo board template for anyone to fill in with their creative goals for 2025, and I decided to partake by filling each space in accordance with my creative endeavors, so I wanted to go over what my stated goals were, give each goal a pass or fail grade, and then discuss what my resolutions for 2026 were. Number 1. Self-publish a comic book. So, technically a fail, but also a pass? At the time I made this resolution, I wanted to draw and release print versions of my one-shot comics I'm the Sidekick and The Little Mermaid Memories of Moo, which was before I decided to include them as part of a collection of 6 other one-shot comics that are on my project roadmap. 𝚘𝚎𝚒, which I eventually decided to include in that same short story collection, did get physically printed after I finished it, but that was just to test the quality of the POD service I was using, and I had no intention of selling those copies as standalone. By that definition, I didn't fulfill this goal, but stepping back from that narrow criteria, I did finish the story from start to finish, my very first one, and I did get it professionally printed, so even though the copies of the book were for myself only, I did technically succeed in self-publishing a comic book. Number 2, practice animation. Other than my freelance work making videos for Psych2Go's YouTube channel, this year I put out 2 animations, the first being my Yoda Yoda dance meme featuring my OC Clannad, and the second being the Oceana trend. The former is probably the only one that counts as real animation practice, since that was my very first time experimenting with tweening, and the other videos were simple animatic, but I learned a lot from that experience. There was another animation I started working on behind the scenes, but I lost motivation to work on it during the storyboarding phase, although I do want to pick it back up and finish it eventually. Number 3, recover files from my old computer. Well, yes, but also no. For anyone who's not aware, my first computer died on me back in 2020, which separated me from over 10 years worth of files that I created and saved across all that computer's drives. I did make a decent amount of progress in salvaging files, but there's still tons more that are still stuck on there, and I really want to get every single one of them recovered. During all of 2025, I was only able to get a few small folders back, so I haven't even made a dent in my goal of obtaining everything back, which is disappointing. I guess to be fair, I am depending on another specific person session to help me with this process, and the timing between the availability both of us had to work on this was always out of sync with each other, but I'm really hoping that we can pick this back up soon, and that 2026 will be the year I can be reunited with all of my beloved files again. Number 4, learn how to crochet. Yeah, this one is a definitive fail. I don't think I even touched my crochet hooks or picked up my Notion bag for the entirety of 2025. I want to learn how to make more crafts in general, but crochet is the easiest one for me to start out with because I don't need to buy any additional supplies. I already have everything I need to start practicing. I think what happened is that I'm still a beginner at crochet, so I chose to just stick with what I knew and focus my creative attention on drawing. Eventually, I will find the time to learn though. I have so many patterns that I've been hoarding for years and I want to get good enough to make my own patterns. It's just a matter of remembering to sit down and do it. Number 5, tackle my movie backlog. I'll go into more details about the specific goal once I get into my 2026 resolutions, but this one also gets a passing grade. My movie backlog is terrifyingly long and there's a huge amount of movies for which I've been trying to dodge spoilers for years. So in 2025, I finally decided to put my foot down and start watching these movies that have eluded me for all this time. For a while, I had a routine where I would get exercise by going out for walks, but on days where I wasn't able to go outside for whatever reason, I would get my exercise by riding on an indoor bike while watching a movie on a screen that was right across from me. Unfortunately, I lost my momentum for this routine after a while, so my backlog isn't totally busted, but I was able to make some pretty decent progress in that area. Number 6, fix my mediocre clock tower fan art. Obviously a reference to my fan art of Bobby and Dan that I drew for their birthday back in 2024, only for me to not like it anymore because of how rushed it was. I eventually fixed it in the tail end of 2025, and I'm so glad I did because I love this piece so much more now. It really opened my eyes to how much my art has improved over the span of 1 year and taught me a lesson about how proper time management can make a big difference on the final outcome of an art project. Number 7, celebrate Clock Tower's 30th anniversary in general. Considering I 100% completed Clock Tower Rewind and drew no less than 40 pieces of fan art for the game last year, I think it's safe to say this goal gets a passing grade. Number 8, launch my Patreon and Ko-fi memberships. I mean, I do have a Patreon and Ko-fi page, and I do have an active and growing archive of posts on there. I just don't feel comfortable sharing them yet, even though I really want to have the experience of managing a community like this. I'll talk more about this subject in my next video, but for now, I'm still in a place where I'm trying to figure out what it is that I want to use these membership platforms for and trying to come up with ideas for rewards that fit my criteria. Now, before I dive into my list of 2026 resolutions, I think it's important for me to give a brief description of where I've been at in different stages of my life from the time I first started my creative journey up until now. When I was a child, it was incredibly easy for me to find inspiration and motivation to do anything creative. I would write whatever crazy stories I felt like writing for no other reason than getting an idea to write something, create entire OCs based off anime girl pictures from 2005 that I found on Google and recolored on Photobucket, draw on absolutely any and every piece of paper or touchscreen that was within arm's reach, and post whatever videos I felt like making onto YouTube, no matter how random or unpolished they were. Now, as an adult, despite having learned and adapted a great deal during my art and writing journey, and my desire from childhood to publish my own stories still being as strong as ever, my creative state of mind feels so much more fragile now than it did when I first started out. There's so many barriers keeping me in place from being productive as a creative person that in the past didn't affect me or didn't exist to begin with. I would convince myself I wasn't in a proper state to write or draw because I was tired or hungry or thirsty, the supplies I had were inadequate, my workspace couldn't be organized the way I wanted to be, and overall strong general feelings of inertia and executive dysfunction that make reaching my goals a lot less accessible than they used to be. The list goes on and on. The specific reasons behind this state of being constantly overwhelmed aren't relevant to this video, but after enduring this decline for as long as I already have, I really wanted to take a step back and see what changed between my adulthood and my childhood. Was there anything I had back when I was a kid that made it so easy for me to create, and could the reason why I'm struggling so much now be caused by me losing those things? I thought about it and realized there actually were some pretty constant pillars in my life growing up that disappeared around the same time I started having these productivity issues. So now that I have this information, this will be the basis for my resolutions. My primary mission is to bring myself back to the state I was in when I was a kid, before I started experiencing so much resistance towards achieving my goals. I feel like it's a little misleading to call these New Year's resolutions because these are more like lifestyle changes that I've been needing to make, and if I'm able to maintain these changes through 2026 from start to finish and stay consistent in the years beyond, then the payoff will be really rewarding. But regardless of whether these are true New Year's resolutions or not, here's my list of everything from my childhood that I want to recapture and carry with me into my adulthood. Number 1, more media consumption. So kind of an evolution of what I talked about earlier with my movie backlog, but on a broader scale. I want to make progress on my TBR list, catch up on TV shows and anime I missed out on, listen to new music, and play new video games. The periods of my life where I've been deep in a fandom, I've noticed are the ones that have the highest creative activity, whether it's by making fanworks for these fandoms, or these fandoms inspired me to get new ideas for my original projects. For me personally, I found that it's really important for me to keep a balance between consuming media and learning about how to be a better artist and storyteller. If I'm writing a story where I incorporate a lot of inspiration from what I'm currently watching or reading, then that results in a chaotic and unstructured story, but during a period where I'm focusing more on going back to writing or drawing school, that results in my own creations turning out really boring and stale, so having that happy medium is really important. Another thing I need to do as far as media consumption goes is to revisit series I watched from my childhood, in addition to discovering new franchises for the first time, just to take a trip down memory lane and refamiliarize myself with everything that I used to love about these series. I also have a really weird habit where I'll really want to rewatch or reread or replay something, but I convince myself not to do it for whatever reason. Like if it's a series that I really like, then I don't want to come back to it over and over again so I can keep it fresh and special or something like that. But every time I talk myself out of that and pick that thing back up again anyway, I always really enjoy myself and it just makes me more fulfilled as a human being. So I've got to break that habit for good. This brings me to my second item, which is don't let motivation grow cold. I feel like when I was younger, there wasn't anything standing between whatever creative idea that popped into my mind and actually getting that idea out of my head into real life. If there was a story I wanted to write, or a character I wanted to design, or a video I wanted to make, I would just jump right into working on that thing without thinking too much about it. But there's a fine line between not being impulsive and being a procrastinator, and I end up losing a lot of ground I could have covered on a project, whether that's an original story or a drawing I wanted to make, just because I let the idea fester in my brain without actually taking it out of my brain and putting pen to paper to make the idea a reality. I think it's easy for me to get paralyzed by everything I have to do to complete a task by looking at the big picture of everything that needs to be done. But if I know that there's something I want to do, then breaking that project down into smaller chunks by not being too overwhelmed to get to work every time I reach a state of I've been stuck on what I need to do in order to progress on this thing, but now I have a burst of inspiration that's getting me unstuck in at least one small area of that thing by writing down a couple of sentences of a voiceover script, or working on a video thumbnail, or assembling a mood board for a story, or putting together provincial comic thumbnails, then the final result can gradually click into place so I don't have to rush to get everything I want to finish 2 days before my deadline, because I continuously and mistakenly believe I have enough time to put this task off until later. I do want to get into the practice of maintaining a buffer for comics and videos, and especially since there's so many different ideas I have for projects in these categories, being proactive about putting the pieces for these projects together ahead of time, even if these pieces don't cover a whole lot of area on their own, they can add up to a more completed project because I'm making a conscious effort to make time for these inevitable projects in the same way that I would make time for other creative pursuits. I'm at a point where I'm discovering that I like to be productive but not busy, and I hope getting into a habit of staying ahead of the curve as described will help me achieve that objective. Number 3, make new friends. This one feels like a really big mountain for me to climb personally because of how much anxiety I have. I was always an outcast growing up, and the barrier of entry for forming new relationships feels even higher and more impenetrable as an adult compared to my childhood. But I know keeping regular contact with at least one good friend, especially if they're also an artist or if we're in the same fandoms, getting into the same new series together, makes a huge difference in my art and story developing output. I noticed that the periods in my life where I've had the most creative drought often corresponded with times where I either didn't have as much contact with friends compared to before, or even lost friends outright, or ended up with toxic friends. But of course, just having quality human interaction is so important in all aspects of life. Number 4, change your surroundings. I feel like growing up I got out of the house a lot more often than I do now, since we would go to church multiple times a week, and usually either during the summer or the winter we will travel out of state for vacation. Of course, the pandemic combined with having a really old car that's expensive to maintain severely restricted the opportunities I had to leave home, and I think my creativity has been adversely affected during those periods. But even just making an appointment with myself to take a walk around the neighborhood and listen to some nice music is very therapeutic and really helps get my creative juices flowing. Above and beyond going outside to touch grass, I noticed a consistent pattern throughout my life where I feel most inspired and creative during the last quarter of the year, during the transition to autumn into winter, and I think seeing holiday decorations come up in the neighborhood and around town, combined with the subtle drop in temperature, really helps boost my mood. As someone who's lived in South Florida my entire life, this is really the only time of year where there's a discernible change in the season, so that seriously helps break up the monotony of what feels like a Groundhog Day of endless summers. Obviously, there isn't really anything I could do about this particular observation, it's just something I've noticed during my analysis and thought was important to keep in mind. Number 5. Keep a predictable schedule. I think in a way this was something I kind of started doing a little bit last year when I participated in the Z and took part in Clocktower's 30th anniversary, because there were concrete deadlines for everything I was drawing at the time. In fact, having the structured deadlines is probably a big reason why my art output was so strong during 2025, because a lot of what I was drawing and posting were for daily challenges or birthdays or anniversaries or silly daily holidays, things like that. It was definitely stressful at times trying to keep up with everything, but I think having that tight schedule in place where I knew what I had to do in order to get these projects done in time really helped me start getting serious about managing my time better. Speaking in more broad terms, when I was younger, I feel like there was so much more in my personal life for me to look forward to, kind of like what I was talking about earlier when I knew we would be out at the house on specific days of the week, but then external circumstances made it necessary for us to stay at home more often. So that's a sign for me to start structuring my days so I can develop better planning skills and have a clear idea of things I can look forward to. I kind of started making progress in that a little bit last year by keeping a calendar of every project I have to work on that's on a deadline, but I still need to figure out a daily routine where I'm actually dividing my days and weeks into sections so I'll be able to work on said projects efficiently. This is something I'm really not used to, so it might take me a little while to figure something out that works for me since this kind of thing doesn't come naturally, but I'm still going to try my best. And number 6. Have fun. I really miss the olden days of DeviantArt and Tumblr where you would fill out different charts of your OCs and ships and reblog prompts to tag your characters in, and I think participating in those kinds of activities makes a big difference as far as engagement and getting people to care about what it is you're working on, which historically is something I've struggled with. Up until now, I thought the only thing I needed to do to gain a following in the art community was to post consistently and to have a strong style and composition, but I've become more aware of how rote and impersonal it feels to just drop my artwork onto social media with some copied and pasted tags and go on ahead without using those specific platforms to interact further with other users and content in a meaningful way. To use a Smash Bros analogy, up until very recently, the energy I was bringing to the table as far as OC and story creation was for fun, but starting in 2025, everything was for glory, and after doing that for a while, I think it would serve me better to pursue a mix of the two. So that's my specific list of how I want to recultivate my childhood experiences to nourish my creative life as an adult, but I do have other specific resolutions, starting with be less afraid to create and share things that inspire me. This is a big one for me, and a problem that I only started having a couple of years ago when I first got serious about drawing regularly and constructing my online portfolio. The August 2024 Nintendo Partner Direct and Indie World Showcase was where this began, because that was when I drew my WAP Trio fan art to celebrate Pizza Tower coming to the Switch. I think that's still my most popular illustration to this date. It got a lot of traction on Twitter, and is currently my only post on Tumblr to reach and surpass 1,000 notes. There was more Pizza Tower fan art that I wanted to make after that, only to quit posting artwork of this franchise altogether and not get back into drawing until it was time for me to post my next YouTube video, and that was because I was honestly too scared to keep making more Pizza Tower content after seeing how much attention my fan art got, because I was afraid that the people who were finding me for the first time through those posts might be disappointed or upset if they opened up the rest of my profile and saw my normal art style. So because of that, I never drew Pizza Tower fan art again. These feelings came back with a vengeance in the last quarter of 2025 when my recent artwork for both 𝚤𝚎𝚒𝚕 and Clock Tower started getting some traction, especially since these pieces of artwork would look very strange sitting side by side on my profile page compared to my August 2024 artwork where my recent fan art followed the same theme of being related to the Nintendo Direct. I thought that by drawing a wide variety of different subject matters, I was sabotaging my ability to build my presence in the art community. Like, people who were interested in one theme wouldn't want to follow me because they wouldn't want to see other things that I drew that were part of a completely different theme, and was especially afraid that these hypothetical people would think less of me if they saw anything on my profile that could be considered cute, feminine, or childish. Thinking about it now, that's so silly. I guess it's taken me long enough to realize that punching above your weight is a good thing, so all of these thoughts I've been having are probably normal for most artists and I'm just late to the party, but I don't want to spend my entire life too afraid to do something I love because I'm worried about being cringe or whatever. I do know cognitively that this is a pattern I need to snap out of, but actually breaking free from that mindset is definitely really hard, so I need all the help I can get, but either way, it is something I'm aware of and trying to overcome. And of course, I have to reiterate one of my 2025 goals as one of my New Year's resolutions, which is self-publish a comic book. For real this time. As I talked about on the channel before, I have a lot of big plans for the future as far as original manga projects, and I'm currently working on a handful of one-shot short stories that I intend to collect into a single volume print book anthology. I really want this graphic novel finished and to start selling copies of it before I turn 30, so it's important for me to start putting the time and effort necessary to make that dream a reality, hopefully, ideally, within this calendar year. If I applied the same amount of tenacity I had making illustrations throughout 2025 into drawing comic pages, that I would be incredibly powerful, and that's the energy I want to bring into the new year and beyond. This final resolution for 2026 has been a recurring one throughout these past couple of years, and that is find a better work-life balance. Now, historically, whenever I made this resolution, it always came from a place of me being unhappy with how I've been spending my days as an artist, where I spend much less time actually creating art and more time lying in bed watching brain rot videos. In 2025, the situation kind of changed a little compared to previous years, where I did spend way more time drawing than I have in the past, and I want to adjust things so I can give more focus and attention to other areas of my life. Although I am impressed by how much I was able to accomplish during 2025 as far as uploading videos and creating artwork in general, it's important for me to accept and understand that the driving emotion behind why I pursued maintaining my channel and my illustration output so vigorously was out of desperation. This past year was one filled with a lot of fear and uncertainty with our financial situation, so I was left doing everything I knew how to increase my marketability so my art could become a source of income, like devoting time to creating videos for the channel with the hope of getting monetized, or creating as many illustrations as I could in order to build a portfolio so I could open art commissions. To the point where I kind of shut out everything else in my life. I feel like there were days where I would spend the entire time I was awake drawing, only stopping to eat or use the bathroom, and a big part of why that happened was due to how fixated I was on drawing as much as I could, pushing myself, learning new things, trying to surpass the amount of art I made last year, you name it. During the period where I was participating in Clock Tower's 30th anniversary, for example, I've lost count of the amount of times I've fallen asleep during the process of creating fan art and woke up hours later with my Apple Pencil still in my hand and my tablet and computer monitor still on. I eventually realized I was overdoing it once it dawned on me that I was pushing aside other important obligations in my life, like hanging out with friends or other important tasks and goals that I've been trying to achieve for years, just so I could have more time to draw, which is definitely something I should not be in the habit of doing. So that's what I mean now when I say I want to have a proper work-life balance. Up until very recently, I thought being productive was putting every second of free time that I could towards working on my projects, but I'm finding out now that resting and taking breaks is productive as well. Like I alluded to earlier, I want to be productive without being busy, to find a middle ground between actively putting in the hard work I know I need to in order to finish long-term tasks, while also spending time relaxing and doing other things I enjoy. If all I'm doing is working without having any other meaningful experiences, then that's not truly living in my opinion, and I hope I can have the management skills and discipline to carefully balance productivity and play so I can have my best life. So that about wraps up my goals for 2026. It got a little intimate at some parts, I know, but this past year was filled with a lot of ups and downs, so it stands to reason that this would influence how I want to approach things going forward. Anyway, let me know if you have any art or general life resolutions of your own, or if you can relate with any of mine. So I don't keep anyone from pursuing their own goals, it's time for me to shut this video down. Make sure to give Boba Cat some pats, snacks, and playtime before you log out, and head to the description of this video to find links for every other corner of cyberspace I'm on. Thanks for letting me chat with you, and until next time, here's to a good 2026!